welcome to our latest video in our wine question series. This week Tom and I are going to be talking a little bit about old vines. So Tom, what are old vines?
Old vines, it's a bit of a marketing distinction, but generally what it means is that the vines producing the wine are older than 30 years of age. It's something that's a bit more common for New World wine producers, so wineries in Australia or the United States are the ones usually more likely to indicate that on the label. And what they're generally means is that those wines are of a certain age, and that age of those wines can go all the way back to 150 years sort of at the upper end, but typically means about 30 years of age or more. One thing to remember that there's very little regulation as to what that term means.
Okay.
So it could, someone could be a bit deceitful about that, but generally speaking, for a winery to claim that the wine's an old vine's wine, the wine will be greater than 30 years of age, or the vine's producing those wines.
Okay, so it seems like people are claiming that a wine is made from old vines as you said, a marketing tool and as a way of giving sort of a positive spin on their wine. What is it about old vines that makes wine so great?
What an old vine will do is it'll generally produce a smaller quantity of grapes that are slightly more concentrated. So rather than the vine giving all of its sort of effort into producing, let's say, 10 bunches of grapes, it might only be producing 3 bunches of grapes. And so all that sort of effort that will be going into those other 7 is now concentrated to those three bunches. And generally what that'll mean for an old vine wine, so you'll usually see it for things like Syrah or Grenache or sometimes even Zinfandel, is that the wines will generally be spicier, more intense, or a little bit more aromatic.
Okay, so it sounds like they're almost more complex and they're more flavorful. Is that correct? And if so, why? How did they get like that?
Well, some things that will happen with those vines as it matures is the vine will sort of get thicker and it'll get actually more fragile as well. But the roots that the vines are on will actually tend to sink deeper and deeper. And so some of the theories that the wine, as the vine grows deeper, is that it'll be able to extract more of the mineral elements in the soil, or even sort of some of the nuance that might be involved with the terroir there. So you may get a wine that'll have more to it, more complexity, more mineral component, more spicy, sort of all those things that generally wine people look for, just that added complexity in that older vine.
Okay, and about how old can a vine get before it dies? Like, what is about the oldest old vines that you'll ever see?
There are currently some older vines that are around 160 years of age. Unfortunately, when you get sort of to really old vines, the records tend to be a bit spotty. It's not something that's usually very notable for a winery 100 and some years ago to sort of write down, I planted such and such vine on this date. So you don't see a whole lot of very, very old vines, but there are some nice documented plantings of Zinfandel in the States going back to about 1895, and even some older ones in Europe.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little introduction to old vines. If you have any questions and like to learn a little bit more, always feel free to email us. And just generally, if you have another question or a topic idea for an upcoming video, get in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook, or by email. Thanks, and see you next week.